Welcome to Molby On The Spot. We are doing this live today and we're alone in the studio, although I think Jack's in the background watching us in case I make any bags ups, like almost not starting the show properly, for example. But we are joined by the one and the only Liverpool legend, Mr. Jan Molby. So welcome back once again, my friend.
Yeah, good evening, Trevor. Technology has allowed us to give it another go, eh?
We'll give it another go. We, for the record, did try to do this on Thursday evening last, and there were gremlins. So we have returned to you on a Monday evening, and we can still talk about the games we were going to talk about. We've also got a bonus game to talk about, and we've got a game tomorrow night, plus a final. So I think it's fair to say that we have a packed schedule ahead for anyone who's watching or listening with us. And hopefully if you are live, I'll be checking the comments on occasion, and I will feed back to Jan if there's anything there. We do have a packed schedule, man, and let's start with that little episode that occurred last week in Paris. A remarkable sort of an evening. I can't really remember a similar level of one-sidedness against the Reds in my recollection of watching the club. I'll be honest, it's actually that extreme. I don't ever remember a Liverpool team being quite so outplayed. You and I talked recently about how against City, it was very much the game was being controlled without the ball, and it felt very, very organized and structured and calm, and like the team knew what they were doing, and like the manager had a plan. This was not that, Jan. This was very much if not a pasting, then a possession pasting. They had 25 plus shots. They ran up Liverpool numbers against us. We managed 2. And the one from Diaz is a comedy effort that's headed for the corner flag. So just a bit of feedback first from you on that idea of that being one of the more remarkable sort of one-sided affairs you've ever seen a Liverpool team have to endure.
So obviously the one thing we always have to remember, Trevor, is that football is about winning, and we won the game. But nevertheless, I thought at times it was a football lesson. We couldn't come to grips with them with or without the ball. And I think we all had a feeling that they were decent. I think we all thought this is potentially a very, very difficult game. But I just don't think we envisaged them to be able to play in a way that we couldn't cope with. So they were very brave. They almost went man on man all over the pitch, and you're thinking, who does that against Liverpool? And it was almost as if that thing we've had over the other team for a long time is that other team can't keep up with us in terms of the intensity. We had that problem with PSG, and I think Arne Slot recognised that. So at half time, he's kind of gone, there's only one way of playing this, and that's dropping deep, defending in numbers. And just hoping that we're going to get out of here in reasonable shape. Having said all of that, the longer the game went, second half, especially so when Kvaratskhelia drifted out the game a little bit and was replaced, they lost something. But I was there, Trevor. I was commentating on the game. I was not sitting there waiting for a Liverpool goal. I know you say, don't you? This is one of them games where Liverpool 1-0, but it wasn't, was it? It was never heading that way. We weren't creating any chances. Mo Salah had real problems against Mendes. We just couldn't get in our flow. And being there and being able to see the players, especially in the first half, looking around, looking at each other and going, you should be here, we should be doing that. Their midfield players took up some really good shapes. I thought even Fabian Ruiz, who doesn't have a lot of pace, but got into some really good positions. So I thought they were terrific. I enjoy watching a good football team, Trevor, and I thought they played really well last week. But in the end, it's a weird and wonderful game, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd love to say that I agree with you and I enjoy watching good football teams because I do, but that was entirely a painful experience as a Red because it did feel that little bit out of control. And some of the stats, just to fire a few at you there, 29.6% possession is as low as I ever recall Liverpool having versus their 70.4. We had almost no category in which we were the better team just none. The amount of shots, the amount of possession, the amount of passes made, obviously all favouring them. Just quite remarkable. And it was more, Jan, the fact that, say they decided in the second half to take on that Doué kid and take off Barcola, who's their highly rated youngster, and replace him with this other highly rated youngster, who, like Kvaratskhelia and like Barcola, has a very dynamic, very aggressive, really quite interesting dribbling style as well, kind of upright and very powerful runner. We saw City have a couple of, good, effective attackers getting down the flanks against us and not producing a whole lot. This lot, if it had not been for Alisson, were producing lots. They were picking out good digs, Jan. And on another night, this is what I'm saying, we have to be actually honest. On another night, it's 4 or 5-0. And it's not flattering because they were all over us. It really was a smash and grab. So I've put up the little banner there. It felt like we really mugged them to get away with a win. Remarkable stuff. And the kind of thing that makes you think, well, are we destined to win this? And then the other thing you think is, well, I hope we really go out and play our football the next time we take to the field, which we really didn't, Jan, in a way that would make you relax and calm and think, well, that's just a blip. How do you see, just with a view to looking forward to the next match briefly, because we will preview it, how do you see things changing? Like, do you think it's one of those things where, Liverpool can't play that badly again, or PSG can't be as impressive in the cauldron that is Anfield? Are we leaning into that?
So that's all I'm hearing from fans, Trevor.
Yeah.
Traveling back from the fans at Anfield on Saturday against Southampton. And I have not spoken to a single Liverpool fan who doesn't agree with what we've just been talking about, how impressive PSG were, how much better they were than us. But everybody's kind of leaning back towards, well, okay, this is Anfield, and Anfield does something to you. So let's see how these young players, as talented as they are, let's see how these young players cope with what Anfield brings on a European night. What Anfield brings on a European night is not always easy to explain unless you've been there. So for those young players, it happened on Saturday against Southampton for 10 minutes at the start of the second half. That sort of cauldron, that intensity on the pitch as well as in the stands. So here's what I'm thinking, Trevor. It's Anfield. I think we'll score. But I think there's every chance they might be as impressive again.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do the sums on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that kind of plays out in your head, because that's kind of where I landed. I landed pretty much the same kind of place where I can see them replicating that performance to a large extent, maybe not quite as dominant. I can see Anfield having an effect. I can see Liverpool stepping up their game, but none of that equates in my head to a definite Liverpool win. Nothing of the sort. I think the tie is very much in the balance. So I look forward to talking to you about that one as we go on. But, we do have other things to review. And the most recent thing that we have to review is the Southampton win at the weekend there. A win which saw Liverpool briefly go 16 points clear at the top of the table. And a win which then, as a result of what happened afterwards, cemented our lead at 15, which is, I think, more than anyone could have hoped for at this stage. Even with the game in hand, there's a good chance we go into the international break at least 12 points ahead. That's great. That's a good place for any team to be, you'd have to say. When I was saying to you about the PSG thing, I was really looking for us to kick on and put on a really dominant, powerful display at Anfield against Southampton. I don't really think the first half equated to that, if we're being honest. It was doing post-match Raw immediately afterwards. We couldn't wait to skip past what was that first half because it's kind of painful, really, if we're being honest. We didn't create a whole lot at all. What do you put that down to? When we used to have a great win in the past and then we're underwhelming in the game after, they used to call it after the Lord Mayor's show. This was the opposite, right? We needed a sort of response. It didn't feel like we got it. I'm not sure if we really got it until the substitutions were made. And even then, it wasn't exactly classic flowing Liverpool football. What did you make of that? And what do you put it down to? Is it a cause for concern in any way for you?
Well, not as of yet, because things are still going well. and we ended up winning the game 3-1, and we're 15 points clear. So as of yet, there's no need to be concerned. Try and find a reason. A league game against Southampton squeezed in between the two Champions League games against PSG, very well knowing that the PSG one will be extremely difficult. Although I just thought that we would do what so many teams done to Southampton this season, and that is just smashing. You know what I mean? Go out, get the job done. Bang, bang, bang. We're at home. There's no need to have second thoughts about how you want to approach the game. We just go at them. They get the full treatment. They get the full Anfield treatment, yeah? And we go after them. But we just couldn't get into it. I had a feeling that the manager might make changes at half-time. 3, I didn't think that's very brave. And also he's, post-match comments in the way he was talking about the lack of effort and various things in there. So he's also maybe not concerned, but he's definitely seen something they doesn't like. And then he probably didn't expect, because we've often spoken about this group of players, haven't we? And they've been together for a long time, and we just don't expect that. So as of yet, nothing to worry about. But you can, if you look back at a few of our games, you can maybe see a trend that maybe we are a little bit tired. You know what I mean? There's been an awful lot of games. But I do need these next 2 games, because these next 2 games are big on each other. One takes you to the quarterfinal of the Champions League, and one gives you a trophy. So these 2 are massive games, aren't they? So I think we need to reflect on those 2 games before there's a verdict to be had of, whether we ran our legs a little bit, whether some of our players are a little bit out of form. It looks like that at the moment, doesn't it? It looks like 1 or 2 of them are maybe a little bit out of form, isn't it? But let's wait and see what happens in these 2 big games.
The legginess is the thing that is of concern to me. And, every manager has certain players they consider undroppable. It seems like Arne Slot has about 9. 8 probably, right? That just will always play. He'll rotate the left back depending. He'll rotate maybe 1 position in midfield, but 2 will always be there, and he'll rotate 1 across the front line. And it seems to be like that from game to game. So I heard, and you had to probably listen to as well, kind of painful conversations trying to get had where reporters are kind of putting gotcha questions to Arne about luck and injuries and all that kind of stuff. And I thought he quite calmly and rightly pointed out that, one of the things that Liverpool went in for him for in the first place was his staff's ability to keep players available. And that's not necessarily luck, and that there is actually a lot of work and thought goes into that. It's by design. Of course, you can have unlucky injuries, but that a lot of it is potentially avoidable by dint of what they're doing. And I think that's great to see. But you would be worried about someone like Gravenberch, who never seems to get a rest ever, and has, at his best, been so bloody impressive, and is a real tool in this Liverpool team in terms of he can break the lines, he can carry the ball, he can now he's developed the capacity to track a run and get a foot in and all these kind of things. It's great, but he particularly looks leggy. I would have thought not necessarily on his own in that first half. There were a lot of them. It was quite interesting, wasn't it, to see someone like Diaz, who was kind of stinking the place up a little bit in that first half, and then came into his own when the changes were made. And you would have thought Luis was probably one of the lucky ones not to get hooked, and yet the changes helped. And I don't think it's any massive shock that it was a lot of eager, fresh legs coming onto the pitch who haven't as much game time under their belt, with the exception, obviously, of Alexis McAllister. And Alexis McAllister is kind of like the adult in the room, isn't he, Jan? He's the one who keeps us ticking. He's really our best. He's our best player. So, to bring on who we could bring on, it just seemed to enliven everyone and bring the best out in them. Do you think we have enough in the mix available in the squad there now to get us over the hump of whatever amount of minimum wins we need to win this league? Because you talked about these 2 cup games, and they're massive, don't get me wrong. And the Champions League, it feels almost disrespectful to refer to it as a cup, even though it is. But the only thing that matters to most of us now is that we don't let this league drop. That win against Southampton can't be underestimated in terms of how important it was to get that job done.
I just think that these 2 games sets you up. It gets you ready for when you go back into action, which, what is that, the 2nd of April against Everton, I think is the next game after. I just think it sets you up for that. But in terms of winning the Premier League, I mean, it's one thing what Liverpool need to do, isn't it? But what are Arsenal capable of doing? And they're not capable of getting anywhere near Liverpool. I don't think so. So yeah, Gravenberch has had 2 poor performances. There is people, Trevor, and I guess, you know, where you do a lot of your work on social media and whatever, there is people who are adamant that with Arne Slot being an inexperienced Premier League manager, that he hasn't rotated enough. You know, I speak to him in the press box every week, Trevor, and they're at it. They're going, you know, he made 3 changes on Saturday, and people going, it's not enough. You'll get caught out. They'll run out of legs. We'll get to April, and we've got nothing left to give. So all this, I'm yet to see all of that. There has been some performances. Well, we lacked energy, isn't it? But I just think that these next 2 games, this thing about being tired, and whether it is tiredness or not, this thing about being leggy, this thing about not being able to find your intensity, there's no rhyme or reason for it. You know, I've been involved in football for so many years, and you're going along really well, and then from nowhere you can't do a thing wrong, right? You know, you can't, and you go, what? And then you try and do all sorts, you know, with your training, maybe more rest or more training, you do all sorts, and you can't find it, and then from nowhere it's back. So it is a tricky thing to try and deal with, isn't it? But I don't think there's anything. There's no reason for the alarm bells as of yet. So, you know, things are still going along really, really nicely.